Fuck. It's a decently sized island, but yeah, there is now a fog of war in the game that kind of obscures areas you haven't been to, because the whole premise is you're no longer starting on an already existing country this time. You're founding the country. You're going through all of the processes. Remember that one mission back in Tropico 4 where you had to kind of set up a colonial regime? Yeah, you start off as a colonial regime, and you actually have to earn your mandate. Instead of like being elected, you have to be loyal to the crown and then secretly plot to overthrow them and all this good stuff. So the island hasn't been explored because we are the explorers. We're the settlers. We just got here, which means that we have to actually send out expeditions and scout the map, find the resources we need in order to survive, make money, and hopefully extend our mandate, which can be shown here in the bottom left corner. This is the mandate. Basically, if this goes down to 0, I immediately lose. I can extend the mandate, however, if I do tasks for the crown. Tasks that are often degrading of the Macho Man's family, degrading of Gordon's dynasty, but are going to be necessary because, well, we want to stay in power long enough for the revolution to occur. The entire colonial era has kind of got this dichotomy going on where you have to appease the crown while systemically building support for the rebel faction that will eventually overthrow the colonial government and place you as the Lord Regent, the El Presidente himself. And, yeah, that's the plan. That's what we have to do, or I'm assuming that's what it wants us to do. I don't know if that's our actual mission here. That's what you do in the sandbox to advance to the next era, though. As for this mission, I don't know. It really depends what it throws at us. I don't know how the campaign's going to treat the historical progression and stuff. I suppose we're going to find out here. But yeah, and we're going to have to send scouts out here eventually to find mines and stuff, because the rebels are going to want that shit to, I don't know, produce firearms or something.
Old chap, have I got a deal?
There is a trade mechanic as well over in the game now. Instead of actually being able to import items directly to your factories, you actually have to establish trade routes. Exports still occur as usual. Ships will just come by and pick them up from whatever country they come from and sell them. Or you can sell them directly through trade. But the only way to get things imported to your island is to have a trade ship and to have it go out and pick up the stuff for you, which is interesting. It certainly adds an element of strategy. You have to plan out your economy. It does mean, however, that you're not able to really do an import economy this time, which is something you could do in Tropico 4, which I hated doing anyway, so it's probably not going to be that big of a problem. I don't really know what to do here, because we start out with a very limited amount of money. I'm just going to accelerate the game and see if we get an objective.
His Majesty
Let's see
needs
this.
money.
Here we go. Perfect. So if we build a sugar plantation, the actual mandate will be extended. And this is something we have to do a lot. In my limited experience of playing the sandbox mode, I had come to the realization that you pretty much have to do every mandate request and accept every mandate extension that comes your way. Otherwise, you're going to get fucked over. Because as the thing goes on, they become rarer and rarer, harder to find. You know, eventually reaching the point where you aren't even offered mandate extensions anymore, and if you don't have enough rebel support, you just lose. So we're going to accept every mandate extension offer given to us and go with it from there. Hopefully they're not too bad. They weren't too bad in the sandbox. Usually it's things like build plantations so that we can starve our enemies and stuff like that, which aren't the worst. There were a few degrading ones, like I had to kiss the king's ring or something. I forget the specifics, but it was something really annoying. But yeah, hopefully we won't have to deal with that shit. Hopefully. The question is, where do we put the plantations? And what plantation are we going to go with? I think he said sugar. I think he specified specifically it was sugar plantations we have to build. Sugar works best in rainforests, so we're going to put it over here. This is going to be where our plantation is. We're going to build like 2 of them because sugar's a good starting thing. I usually start with sugar in these games. It's a good, all-around good resource. Oh yes, this is actually something I do need to show. It's because it's pretty major difference between Tropico 4 and 5. you can no longer build all buildings from the start. They unlock in different time periods. So they have, like, you go through the World Wars, you go through the modern times and the Cold Wars, and you unlock buildings as things go. Now, whether or not this is a good thing depends entirely on your perspective. I think, personally, it's a good thing. But I have seen people say otherwise, and with good reason. I think it's a good thing because it adds variety. It adds a sense of development. It adds a sense of progression. Like, of course your island's not going to start out fucking building supercomputers and shit. Of course it's not. You're not going to be able to start out doing that. And the thing I like about this technological advancement is that it forces you to adapt your economy over time. It forces you to make decisions and changes to your economy with the times, which is kind of realistic and makes a lot of sense, and it's entertaining because it gives you something to do. One of the biggest problems with Tropico 4 is that you would focus exclusively on a specific industry, and that industry would become your moneymaker, your big buck maker. And that's pretty much the only thing you would do. That's no longer the case here. You can't do that because certain industries become obsolete over time as you unlock more and more options, and the quest requirements start changing, and it creates this whole sense of progress where you're always upgrading and always advancing, which I personally enjoy. Of course, the downside to this is, unless you purposefully set it in the options menu to force yourself to the modern era, it's going to take a lot of time for you to unlock all the cool shit, like the supercomputer, or the nuclear submarine, or the drone command. For some reason, though, we have the Ranger Corps. How? I mean, I don't think Rangers existed in the colonial... Whatever, they're probably colonial Rangers or something. Ah, yes, and this is another cool thing. They actually have changed how the military works, which I will be showing you later on. Let's just put it this way. It's a lot better now. We no longer have hundreds of tiny soldiers running across the map and sprinting towards an objective. Instead, you have hundreds of squads doing the exact same thing. And tanks. Yes, tanks. Actual tanks and airplanes and shit, which is kind of cool. They didn't really add a strategy element, which is unfortunate. I was kind of hoping when I first saw the squads that you'd be able to take command of them, but apparently you can't. But yeah, there's a lot of shit we're going to be going over, guys, by the way. There's a lot of fucking shit. So I'm going to be bouncing all over the place as this game goes on.
Greetings, old chap. Have
I'm going to buy from the Dutch, because fuck the crown. The relations with the crown doesn't really matter too much. You can't really drop it, at least significantly in my experience. You can drop it slightly, but it won't... I haven't actually found a circumstance where it drops to a point that it becomes a problem.
His Royal Majesty has instructed me...
Mandate extension. Always going for that mandate extension. Always. Another thing we're going to want to do, and this is just for my personal choice here, I'm going to actually create cotton plantations because, let's be honest, this is the colonial period. You know, literally the age of empires, and if there's anything I know about this time period, it's that everyone loves the shit out of cotton. Like, they love cotton enough to literally enslave entire populations to get it. I don't know why. Maybe, I don't know, leather's just out of style or something. But for some reason, people like cotton. Unfortunately, our island's not very good for cotton, so we're not going to be able to focus on that as an industry. Which sucks. Well, that's that plan out of the window. We could create ranches, which then we're going to do. I think we're going to create ranches. Actually, what's our next task? Here we go. There we go. Yeah, we have to build a library so we can start researching things, but I'm going to create a few ranches. I'm going to do... I mean, I guess wool is close to cotton. We'll do a few wool ranches. We'll put them, like, right here. And hopefully that will work. This is the first starting home here, the country house. And this is something I actually like. This is another thing they added which I actually like. And I can't really show you all of them, but the actual parameters for what makes the housing work, what makes the housing quality good, depends on the type of house you're building. For example, the country house provides housing for a family, but also provides food. So the people at the country house are harvesting their own food, which means they don't have to go to the market. And this is good for very poor class people. It's especially good in the colonial period. It's pretty much your only choice besides the mansion, which you're not going to have a lot of wealthy families in the first place. The mansion, the beauty improves by the housing quality, and this is a trend that continues throughout almost all the buildings. Pretty much every building is affected by things around it, which means that there's some strategies you have to implement in order to get them to work at their max efficiency, which is a big step up from Tropico 4, where you could literally spam mansions into shanty towns and no one would care.